Hey everybody, how's it going? So I know that last week's video I said that these next couple of videos were going to be a little bit different than what I originally stated in the May update. And this first video is actually one that I came up with last week. I was on eBay and I found this Millennium Falcon for like $5, so I figured it'd be a really cool thing to buy and paint and try to do something cool with. So that's what today's video is going to be about, is just going ahead and putting some washes on this guy, detailing it, painting it, and yeah. So we're going to make it look really cool. I might even add a base at the end if I have a little bit of extra time, but for now, the basic idea is just putting some weathering on this guy, doing some dry brushing, some washes over top of it to really pull out some of the details in here, because it's actually got quite a bit of nice detail. It's just the kid's figure. And I'll leave a link to it. I found it on Amazon also, and it's really cheap there too. It's only, I think, $17 or something. So this is going to be an easy one-day build, so let's go ahead and grab a couple materials and get started on this guy, okay? Sweet. Alright, so first thing that we're going to do is start out with some shoe polish and just rub that over the entire ship, and then we're going to dab that off after it starts to dry a bit. This is going to first of all dull down the shine of the toy originally, and kind of get rid of that really clean color, but it's also going to start to seep into the little cracks and panel lines and leave a little bit of residual in there so those details really pop. So like I said, go ahead and apply that to the whole ship first, let it dry for a little bit, and then rub it all off. I did have a little bit of trouble getting it to adhere to the top, not so much on the bottom, but on the top it tended to bead up. I probably could have avoided this if I had done a clear coat over top of it as like a clear coating primer. That probably would have helped me out a little bit here, but it ended up working out okay, because after this we're going to go ahead and go into an acrylic wash. Alright, now that we're done with the shoe polish, we're going to go in with some acrylic paint. You can either water this down. I chose not to, just because I wanted a little bit more of a heavy contrast as I was trying to build up some shadows and layers. So I only used this selectively in areas that had sharper corners or bigger creases. That way it really adds, first of all, a shadowy effect, but in actual weathering this tends to be the areas that build up grime on any prop or ship or whatever it is that you have. It tends to build up that dirt and dust and grime right in those corners that are a little bit harder to get to. So that was the thought process here, and then we're just going to go ahead and again wipe away most of it, but you really want to make sure that you're just kind of dabbing it and leaving it so that it's more subtle effect, less streaky. It looks a little bit more natural that way. So I went in a little bit heavier on that top dish just to make sure that I was getting really deep into the cannon as well as some of those panel lines. And I also went in pretty deep on the dish to make sure that I was really pulling out those details. So then after that, I went ahead and started adding the exhaust burns at the back of the ship. So just wiping away again most of that detail so that we're only left with a really nice subtle streaking effect. Alrighty, now that I'm happy with the acrylic, I'm going to go back in with some oil paints. And this time I'm actually going to go ahead and go in with a brown oil paint. This is something that I recently discovered that has actually been super cool, because oil paints are great in that they smudge really easily and look really oily, but you also have a really long work time with them because they take forever to dry. So you get to really push that color in wherever you need it. and it really gets a nice authentic look. So this was one of the steps that I was really happy with. And again, making sure that I only hit the areas that make absolute sense, some of those deeper corners and bigger crevices, just to make sure that it's really controlled on where you put it. It's really easy when weathering to put all of it everywhere and wipe it off, but I find that you end up with a more interesting piece if you selectively choose where to use which color and which material. It tends to really draw focus to certain areas, but also keep it nice and separated, but also cohesive. So that's what I did right there. And then next up I went in with some black oil paint just to really add in the last final dark shadows in the areas that I really wanted to pop. So this one I was the most selective with, as it was the most extreme, so I wanted to make sure that I used that one carefully. But you'll see that I'm going to go ahead and wipe away the rest of that, and then we can get going on the next step. Alright, so once you're happy with all of your coloring on the top of the ship, I find it's best to go ahead and go back in with either a wet paper towel, or in this case my finger actually worked the best. So you just really want to rub off the top paint from all of those panels. You want to make sure that you leave it in the crevices, but this really helps, especially with a ship like this where I didn't want it to look too dirty. It helps you kind of weather it back a bit so that it's not so dirty that it looks gross. Because that wasn't my goal here. I was going for just something that looked used, something that you'd see flying around in the Star Wars galaxy, so I wasn't necessarily going for the piece of junk that I could have made it. So making sure that I wipe away most of that paint. Next up, we flipped it over, and for the bottom, same process, kicking it off first with the shoe polish. This one ended up doing a lot more work on the bottom. As I said, it didn't bead up like it did on the top. So I actually just did this for the bottom, as it's the part that's going to be least seen, and I wasn't really trying to do too much to the bottom. I was more concerned about the top. So just gave this one a nice black wash and then called it a day with the bottom. But as per usual, apply it heavy, let it dry, and then wipe it away with a damp paper towel or a sponge if you've got it. Alrighty, and the final step here was to go ahead and paint up the landing gears. So I did this with a chrome model paint. just went ahead and brushed over all of them, which was pretty easy because it was already a light gray, so it applied over really nicely and just put that metallic sheen to them. This wasn't something that was completely necessary, but I decided that it would look nice and add a little bit of that extra authenticity to it. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get to the reveal pretty quick here. Alrighty, so I hope you guys all enjoyed that. Hope you learned something cool. I had a lot of fun with this one. For a really cheap toy that I got, I feel like we turned this into something that's actually really awesome. So I highly recommend that you guys do this yourselves. Pick one up. Like I said, it's a really cheap toy. Find them either on eBay or Amazon. I'll link the Amazon link in the description so that you guys can snag one yourselves. But other than that, just to let you know, I will have this exact one available on my Etsy page. I'll leave a link to that down below as well. So if you really want this specific one, you can find it there. But I do also highly recommend that you pick up just the toy and try this yourself, as it was a lot of fun. So definitely check this out. Buy one, paint it up, and if you do paint it, please send it to me. I love to see you guys' work. I love to see what you guys are doing. So just send it to me on Instagram or Facebook or wherever, and I'll see it. And yeah. But again, I'd like to thank you guys all for watching. I really appreciate it. If you don't mind, do all the liking, commenting, subscribing, all that stuff so we can keep this channel growing and get some more fun projects like this going on this channel. So that's all I got for now, and I'll see you guys in the next one.